So it's great to have you both on, Dave and Tony. Suppose the first thing that we'd really like to know is sort of how the School of Kicking came about.
Do you want to take that one, Dave?
Yeah, you go, and then I'll chip in.
Well, I think initially it started off, obviously Dave being a kicking coach. I sort of coached Dave's son Stu at university. We used to get together and kick. We were both involved there with Exeter Chiefs as well, so we spent a lot of time kicking together. And then it got to the stage where we thought actually we can support other players. We can start coaching a little bit of kicking. And obviously with Dave's background and support and help, we're able to do that. We've both got full-time jobs in and around what we were doing with the kicking as well. So it was then that Ben Thompson came on board with Mace Sport and said, look, you've got a product here that we could really grow and support even more people across the country. And with that, we, they took a lot of the admin on, which was great because that was a part of it we struggled with really with our full-time jobs as well. And from that, School of Kicking was born. And obviously with Dave's support and knowledge, it sets us up very nicely to be able to go out there and support kids, players of all levels, from grassroots right through to international level, and hopefully sort of take some of the frustration away from their practice.
Lovely. What would you say, Dave?
I think it's absolutely right. I mean, and it's really interesting how, if you look at the game's development now, at the moment, one side has one kicker and you think, yeah, but that's an individual thing. But actually, the team of the future will have every back player able to kick, because at the moment, the defenses are so tight and they watch videos and they anticipate and so on. And if you continually kick from the 10 hub, then there's so many people back there waiting for it. So it's gonna mean centers are learning to kick on the run, wingers are learning to kick on the run, or should be able to, and they kind of the kicking gets squeezed out because the gym is more important because you can measure it. The running is more important because you can measure it. Diet, weight, nutrition, all the rest of it, and kicking kind of just drops off the end. And then you get one or two people that can be quite effective without kicking. And everybody thinks, oh, thank God for that, I don't have to kick. And then we end up with one kicker in the team. And then you go full circle again. So, and people, I think, forget that, Wilkinson's most effective time in Toulon was when Matt Gitter was playing. Yeah. And they used to interchange the kicking, and it was very, very difficult for defenses to work out where the kick was going to come from, who was going to kick it, and so on. And sometimes, Matt would go in at first receiver and Wilkinson might be second receiver or even third receiver. And it keeps people, all over the place. But it's funny how the game ebbs and then people come back to it and it just leaves. The other part of it is, if you look at how many people go on the golf range and don't play professional golf, wouldn't it be great for loads of players to go and have a good kick around?
Yeah. Well, I think, you've never seen a warm-up, certainly at amateur level, school level, etc., where you've not had all 15 players, probably 14 players bar the kicker, all out there practicing kicking, because it's fun, basically, isn't it? There's nothing better than seeing how far you can wallop the ball and can you nail it through the sticks from 40 yards out.
Yeah.
I think as well from my point of view, and certainly other kickers as well, I think growing up in an environment where there wasn't really any support for kickers was quite difficult. I always found that, I would try and work my way through it. You sort of see little snippets on TV of certain kickers and you maybe take that and run with it and try it, then it doesn't work, then it works, and you go through these little purple patches. And if I'm brutally honest, there were times where it was quite frustrating, and it wasn't through lack of effort. I'd like to think, thousands of hours I would have put into practice as a kid growing up to be the best kicker that I could be. If I'd have had some sort of support at that stage to help me and guide me, I think it would have sort of supported me at a much earlier age. And I think at the moment, that's one of the things we're trying to get across, is we're trying to just support those players that are sort of trying it, they're working it, they're picking up little niggles, they're getting frustrated with the distance they kick the ball, and hopefully give them a bit of an understanding as to how it all works and how we can get the best out of their kicking game.
Yeah. I mean, I suppose on a semi-technical, I'm sure to both of you, it's not at all technical, but a semi-technical level, the thing that I've always certainly found personally and found sort of with teammates when I was younger, etc., was the bridge between being able to kick and then going, I'm bigger and stronger now, I should be able to kick further. And as soon as you try and kick further, it all goes wrong. And you think, but I was really good at kicking it not very far. Why? Like, I couldn't ever understand why it all went wrong. I mean, presumably, when you're working with young kids, that becomes a key part of it.
Well, there are two things, actually. One, we try and encourage people to kick with their body shifting. Yeah. So the body is the prime mover and the leg is the afterthought. When we get stronger, we like to think that we don't need the body anymore and we can just use the leg. And that's where injuries come and we get groin problems and the quads get tighter and all that kind of thing. So what we're trying to do is to get a strong person to understand that less is more.
Yeah.
And then the quality of the contact and the foot speed is like the end of a chain reaction, rather than stopping and trying to lump it as hard as you can.
Yeah. Well, it makes sense. I mean, you think of Elliot Daly is not a big man by any stretch, but he's kicking it as far as anyone in the world. And yet, I don't know, someone of his equivalent build, Chris Patterson, say, was only kicking it, 22 was as far as he was prepared to take it out, kind of thing. Exaggerating a bit, but they're fundamentally the same body shape, give or take. So the Alred Trophy, I suppose, was born out of School of Kicking, I assume. And
yeah,
how was that? So last year was the first year. How did that all go?
Yeah, no, it went really well. I think the uptake initially, everyone was a little bit sort of nervous. What is it? What does it look like? How does it work? So the numbers weren't, what we'd have maybe liked, but the numbers we had there were great. They were all good kickers. They all got stuck in. The running of the day went really well. It was very professionally run, again with Ben and May Sport. They sort of came in and sort of took over, and from that point of view, the players were the stars of the show. They sort of turned up. They got interviewed. They were on camera. They had their own tables. They had their own ball they were going to kick with during the tournament, and then they went through all the kicking phases, all the challenges, and then obviously broke it down to the final event, which was the red zone kicking. But it's interesting with all of them that I knew a couple of the kids that we'd worked with before the event, and they said that the pressure and the nerves they felt while they were kicking were something they'd never really witnessed before or experienced before. And I think when you've got a drone over your head, when you know that if you miss, you're out of the competition, when you've got all the parents behind the fence or with their head in their hands, and you've got Emily Scarrett, stood there watching as well, and all the other players were also probably in a funny way willing you to miss, because if you miss, then you're out of the competition. Yeah. It's tough. It's tough, and it created a pressure that they'd never experienced. And a couple of the kids said to me, I've never experienced this before. I didn't, these nerves, I didn't really know how to deal with it. And they dealt with it really well on the day. But I think for those kids that were there last year, that are coming back, a lot of them have signed up again already. I think they'll be better prepared. But I think the pressure that comes with it is something they find it difficult to replicate in their training and matches at the level they're at the moment. So hopefully it's given them a good experience as to what some of the top players have to deal with week in, week out, because they've not got 20 people watching and cameras and drones. They've got millions of people watching around the world. And it doesn't make it easy.
Well, I presume pressure, if we think about where some of these kids could end up going, I suppose pressure is quite a key driver, in that ultimately you're probably not going to come under that much pressure as a kicker until you're a professional, because even whilst you're in the academy of a club, for instance, there's always, I'm going to get trained. I'll get taught how to kick better than this. I'll get more accurate as time goes on. And then one day you're in the first team and it's, everyone assumes I must be good now. So I suppose the pressure must be a key element, not just on the day, but actually for the future for all these young kickers.
You're right, and I think that a lot of people make assumptions about what a world-class kicker needs in terms of the what goes underwater. It's a bit like the iceberg, you just see the top bit of the guy kicking. You don't see all the other stuff and the frustrations and the hard work and, all of those kind of things. But I look at it, and one of the reasons I was keen to be involved is, and I'm actually coaching a couple of young kids myself, as well as the Reds. And kicking is almost a metaphor for life. You've got to organize yourself. And when I'm working with a young player, I ask him how his schoolwork is going. How's his study going? How are you organizing yourself? You're trying to kick 20 minutes every night. Do you do it at the same time? And so on and so forth. And we've had a dramatic success with a guy called Tom Taylor, who's now Leicester are all over him at the moment, trying to get him to sign. He's now playing at rugby school. And that's somebody that I started with when he was 12, and he just wanted to kick, and I taught him, and he went and practiced, and I kind of, he came back, and he obviously had practiced, and his parents are very supportive, and it changed so much of how he managed himself. And the one thing that separates the world-class performer from the hundreds of performers that go around is the world-class performers, whether it's in golf or rugby or whatever, takes responsibility for their own improvement. So me as a coach, I'm not telling them, I'm helping manage their learning and trying to grow them. And that's a massive, massive difference. And I'm hopeful that even if Tom doesn't fulfill his dream and play for England, or Nate doesn't fulfill his dream and be a Wallaby, what he will have gained in terms of all the other processes and disciplines will actually equip him for life. And that's one of the reasons why, a lot of people say, well, there's only one kicker in the team. And I said, no, you completely misunderstand what this is about. It's actually about life as well. And rugby, and kicking in particularly because they can't play rugby at the moment, is a metaphor for so many other things as well.
Yeah, that's quite a fascinating point, I suppose, because to take your sort of your great example of Jonny Wilkinson, it's not as if he didn't come with a ready packed work ethic, or any number. You can't get to that level of professional rugby without a huge work ethic behind you. And I suppose all you need is someone helping you, sort of guiding you the right way. I think by the sounds of things, the Alred Trophy actually is gonna help people with that. You've got all these kids coming together, some great kicking minds there to give pointers and help out and encourage them along the way.
I think with the last one, it was great. The whole day went really, really well, better than we'd anticipated. But the one thing we hadn't sort of planned on was the disappointment with the kids once they'd missed, because we'd built it up to be this one shot, one opportunity. If you miss, you're out. And they were all aware of that. We sort of mentioned it from the time they turned up to sort of try and create this little bit of pressure around what we were doing. And then, like I say, the one thing we hadn't planned for was the disappointment in them when they'd missed that. We were kicking red zone kicks, so kicks they should normally get. And when they missed one of those and they were out of the competition, all of a sudden there was a real disappointment. So it was almost like, arm around the shoulder and just sort of talk to them and sort of support them a little bit with that. And that was, like I say, that was probably the one thing we hadn't sort of anticipated, was that sort of disappointment when they were out of the competition, because there can only be one winner. So it was, the day was a great day, and it was a great eye opener for all the kids that were there, and they all absolutely loved it. But there was that sort of element of disappointment at the end when they missed that they felt they should have got.
That's amazing. So if I'm a kid who's signed up, are there any tips, any short cheats that might help me in my practice, so that when I turn up, I'm feeling confident of being one of the top ones?
I think I'll leave Dave to talk you through quick cheats.
I think if there's a willingness to explore and practice, and there's so much stuff on Instagram and so on, and I try and post stuff which is not exactly instructional, but it's not there to show somebody having scrambled egg. It's there to say, this guy is kicking at 40% effort. Look how smooth it is. It's difficult to do because when you put less effort, you become so much more aware, and therefore there's a potential for a lot of cluttered thinking. But those are the things that help you learn.
Yeah.
And it's it's just keeping that going. And I think that, as you say, dealing with disappointment, life is full of disappointments at the moment, more so than a lot. But I think that, like you say, it can only be one winner. But it's something perhaps that we might actually talk to the parents about, maybe away from the kids next time we do it. And it's interesting, even the language, because if somebody misses, then very quickly, oh, you missed, that wasn't very good. And even the term that wasn't very good, that sticks on me as an individual. I am not very good. Yeah. And what we need to do, and most coaches hopefully have been educated enough, is to actually educate them enough to say, okay, right, you're not a kicker, you're a really good bloke, okay? Now, if you had that again, what would you do differently? Yeah. And if you look at it from that way, as a kind of learning experience, and that makes a massive difference. And it's the same event, the same environment, but it's really important that, okay, I didn't match my intention to get the ball between the posts. What do I need to do differently? Not better, not worse, not get my act together, all the other stuff that gets thrown at you, which is completely unhelpful. What do I need to do differently? And that in itself is an educative moment, yeah. Both for parents and for players.
Oh, and presumably we can apply similar thinking across sort of the entirety of someone's rugby playing. I suppose a hooker throwing into the line out would find the exact same set of circumstances arriving. I suppose we might as well talk a bit about kicking in the wider game, since everyone is talking about it right now. Box kicking. What do you both make of the current trend for allowing so much time for box kicking, and whether it's is it the blight on the game that people think it is, or is it just that it's the way things are at the moment?
It's interesting because I'm not sure people have really quite analyzed, understood how you can take advantage of it. If somebody box kicks to you, and unless they mishit it, the ball actually follows a parabolic curve. In other words, it goes up and it stalls and it comes down, and it's going end over end. Yeah. So the flight, even though the ball is spinning, the flight is very true. And the rules state now that if you're off the ground, you can't be touched. Yeah. So if somebody box kicks and you've got a high knee lift jumper and he's touched, it's at worst, it's a red card. Yeah. It's a yellow card, but it's a penalty. And I don't think people have quite worked that through yet. And if you could remember 2 years ago, I think it was, when 2 years ago, when Ireland played Australia, and there was a collision between Falau and I can't remember who the other person was, actually. And there was a massive debate about was it who, and in the end, Falau lost, and he was off. And it turned the game. Yeah. And I think that while box kicking at the moment is, okay, right, here we go again. And you all, charge up in the chase and so on. I think the smart people are going to start looking at that and anticipate the box kick. We'll have a free catch and we'll just get possession. and we'll start again.
Yeah.
I suppose you can argue about it is better to box kick than it is to pass it back 10, because he's 10 yards further back if it's a line out. So there's another argument. And there's also the other argument that actually says, particularly from a line out, if you do what the Blue Bulls used to do when Matfield was playing, was to catch, actually hold the line out and stop it rather than go to a maul, then everybody had to be on side, and Matfield was particularly skillful. And then he would flick back to the scrum half, who was virtually doing a bomb. It wasn't a box kick at all. He was getting tremendous height on it.
Yeah.
You know, so I don't. It's not a surrender, and it's a tool that, you know, people are using, and it has become a little bit kick and rush. But I think if the smart teams start thinking about it and get in the air and practice getting in the air, not just talk about it, then I think they find that they can turn the tables.
Yeah. Well, it seems often as well that certain styles of kicking come in and out of trend as laws adapt, as defences adapt. You know, I'm sure everyone around the country seeing Stuart Hogg sending in 60, 70 metre spiral kicks is going to go, oh, let's start spiral kicking more. Or, you know, the trend for change will always be there. You know, George Ford talking about the spiral bomb.
Yeah, I thought it was a fascinating conversation. I was speaking to Dave Rennie yesterday, who was with Stuart Hogg in Scotland, and we were talking about the spiral and so on. And of course, what you end up with, and this is a bit of an issue for coaches and players, is spiral is a higher risk kick, but it's a higher reward. Okay? So, are you prepared to accept that 10% of these might go a bit AWOL? Now, I can remember talking to Joe Schmidt when I was working with Sexton, and we worked out that if we have a penalty in our own half, 22 or whatever, and we're 15 meters in from touch on the right touch line, then we're going to go and spiral it. We're going to spiral it 60 meters, okay? If we don't find touch and the chase is reasonable, they're going to kick for touch and we're going to get a line out on their 40.
Yeah,
okay?
Either way.
Which is what a normal drop punt would give us anyway.
Yeah.
So we haven't lost anything. If it does find touch, we've got a line out inside their 22.
Yeah.
So, you know, you roll the dice, and as long as the kick is, and then, you know, people go, yeah, but what if he misses touch? And Joe, fair play to him, said, look, if he misses touch 50% of the time, but kicks it 60 meters, it's our advantage, because we will still win.
Yeah. We
might not win quite as much, but we'll still win.
Yeah. Yeah. It's calculating the risk reward of it, I suppose.
Yeah.
To circle back to kind of younger players and I suppose continue with trends in rugby. Tony, you're working at Blundell's, aren't you?
Yes.
Is that right? So the sort of trend, the very simplistic way of looking at school rugby at the moment is that it's very much get the ball in hand, get attacking, sort of explore the ranges of your skills, which is all reasonably true, but I think probably ignores the fact that a huge amount of kicking is actually massively encouraged at school level. And it's that's sort of like your take on it, because we've seen over the last 4 or 5 years, second rows, back rows, props, whoever being encouraged, hey, if it's on, put a chip in, go for it. And I wonder, it must be amazing seeing these kids in training just going, yeah, I'm going to go for it.
I think so. I think it shackles off at schoolboy level. I think if you can't enjoy yourself, enjoy your rugby at schoolboy level, then what opportunity are you going to get? So I think giving the kids that opportunity to have a go, get stuck in, but also, you know, at the same time supporting them with their learning and understanding of how to kick as well, and also when to kick and where to kick. You know, just giving them sort of pointers on the best opportunities to get good reward. So it's not just a case of the second row gets it, he just hoofs it downfield and hopefully we chase. It's more a case of if you find yourself in this situation, you identify space. It might be on the outside and we go for a crossfield kick. It may be in behind and we can push the ball in behind. But hopefully if we can create a good kicking game with a good understanding as to why we're kicking the ball, then that should hopefully create space and that will allow us to run even more. So if they got loaded in backfield, that should give us space in the defensive line, maybe on the edge. If the defensive line is thick and they've only got limited numbers in backfield, then we can put the ball to space and create pressure that way. So hopefully, certainly for us, it's a case of trying to get them to understand when to kick, why they kick, and what reward they get from it as well. But within that, it's identifying where the space is. And if we move the ball there by passing it, brilliant. If we move the ball there by kicking it, then so be it. It's an opportunity for them to put a team under a little bit more pressure, hopefully.
And you must have coached both the Morné brothers while you were there. Would that be right? It must have been quite cool seeing Jack start a Premiership and a European Cup final last year.
Jack and Sam, and also Dom Bess, who's obviously with England cricket.
Of course, yeah.
Not that I helped him with cricket at all. That's not the case. But he was he's a very talented rugby player as well, and he was in the same year as Jack. And they both obviously went on to get obviously Dom with England cricket, and Jack got a cap for England as well. And yeah, to see guys come through, they were both Sam and Jack both worked very, very hard at their game, put a lot of extra time and extra hours, and to get the opportunity to go and get involved with Chiefs, and then for Jack certainly at the moment to be playing at the level he is great.
Yeah, and I suppose to sort of complete that circle in terms of the sort of school rugby, I kind of get the sense we're moving towards a true. We've all spoken about it for 30 years almost, of a true game where from numbers 1 to 15, 1 to 23, everyone's the same. You all have to be a decision maker. You all have to do things. It seems as though that's actually being coached now, as opposed to once upon a time it was you should do this, but don't do it. I think. Sorry to go on.
The old school mentality of forwards do not kick, whatever happens, forwards do not kick, is sort of gone a little bit. And this sort of new era of coaches have come in, and a lot of people are pushing on social media as well around sort of the opportunities. How good would it be if you had back rows that could slide the ball in behind or put the ball into space, and it just gives you more strings to your bow. And if you can create a more complete player, be it in the forwards or the backs, then that's great. I think the other thing as well is, at schoolboy level, depending on the age you're at, you can't guarantee that the back rower in year 9 or 10 is going to be a back rower when he's an adult. He may move towards playing in the centre, such is the game at the moment with the size of players across the whole team. And it might be that you've got your centre that moves into the back row. So I think giving kids that opportunity to explore, opportunity to practice kicking, passing, all these elements of the game, up until an age is beneficial in their development as a player, because like I say, what they're sort of tarred with as a year 7, 8 player might not be the case as they come through the school in terms of how they develop and grow.
Hugely. And I suppose Dave, it all circles back to kind of where you started, saying that you want to. There's no reason why everyone shouldn't be able to kick. I mean, look at John Eales back in the day.
Yeah. Well, also, wasn't there a Welsh forward, Martin, big second row, also goal kicked as well?
Oh yeah, that's right. Was it in the 70s? John Taylor was it? Used to kick.
But also there was another guy who used to toe kick. But of course, the boots have changed a lot since then, and so on. But there's no reason why forwards shouldn't kick. And it, like you say, we had John Eales doing it. I think sometimes coaches now, I think, and it's quite an interesting dynamic now, and I can see it. And that is that a lot of teams are smitten by this negative avoidance. In other words, their whole raison d'etre is to not make a mistake rather than try to perform to their limit. And it's and if you who dares wins and all the rest of it, take a chance and see what happens. I can understand all that. And when there's more and more on the line of the game, then it becomes more difficult, particularly if we're looking at the crudity of it, that the coach's jobs often depend on the success or otherwise of the team. So we end up, if we're going to go towards the soccer-ish mentality, and I think that's in danger of squeezing it out, which is why teams will have one or two really, really interesting players, but the rest of them won't make a mistake, kind of thing. That's the so-say blend. But we'll see, and it's going to be up to the rules. As soon as they change the rules, I mean, we've got a rule that we're playing in the Super 14 now that, if we can kick from our own half and we get touch into the 22, we get the line out. And what that's done is actually the aim was, and I don't think teams have used it effectively enough yet, but what the aim was that it makes people stay back.
Yeah.
And then stop having an overload line of, if you like, one sweeper, 13 men on the front line, a bobby and a fullback, and there's no room. Yeah. Now, if that's the case, then you just ping it in the corner, and then all of a sudden we get a line out in their quarter, and that's a costly.
Yeah.
So people have to be a lot more honest now. It's going to be interesting to see how it goes now in the second season.
Yeah, I'm sure there'll be a fair bit of adaptation. I'll sort of bring it back to the Alred Trophy now, and putting myself in the shoes of someone who's signed up. So I've got 2 months until it all kicks off. What can I do over the course of the next 2 months to put myself in the best position to do well?
I think just from sort of an admin point of view, really, we've now teamed up with Rhino. So Rhino are going to be supplying the balls. So what's going to happen now is all the players, once you sign up, you're going to get your ball. So that will be the ball for you to practice with pre-tournament. So the earlier you sign up, the earlier you get the ball and able to practice. And that's the ball then that you will bring to the tournament and that you will use throughout the tournament. We're aware of, new balls or poor quality balls in terms of kicking is something that's new to you. So what we've said is if we get the ball to the kids as early as we can, then they get opportunity to, blow the ball up, get it at the right pressure for them, and make sure everything's absolutely perfect. So again, there's no excuses when they turn up to the event. The event itself, obviously there's 6 challenges, all those can be found online. They're all sort of recognised kits within rugby as well. We've got the longest drive, we've got restarts, high ball challenge, we've got drop goal challenge, and red zone, which is the goal kicking challenge. So it's quite a good flavour with regards to the whole day.
Yeah. So get outside and get practicing, I suppose, is the key take.
The main event is the goal kicking. That's the trophy event at the end. But there are awards and prizes for players that win other elements as well. So you may win the longest drive. It may be that your restart, is more accurate than other players. But when it comes to the trophy, that comes down to the red zone goal kicking at the end.
Right. I only wish that I was in the right age category to give it a go. It's the sort of thing I would have loved.
And I think that's the thing. I think kickers tends to be quite a lonely place sometimes. Being a kicker, you go out and practice. You tend to be on your own. But hopefully, with School of Kicking, we're trying to create a community where people can come together and share ideas. We've got our kickers club that players can sign up to, which is a monthly subscription, and we put loads and loads of content into there as well. And hopefully, what we want to do going forward is create this community where the kickers can share ideas. Talk through what's going well for them, what's not going so well for them, pick each other's brain as to what the other players are doing as well, and hopefully just try and create a bit more of a community feel to it. I think, like I say, kicking tends to be quite a lonely position or lonely job in terms of going out and doing your own thing. So hopefully this event with such a lack of competitive rugby at the moment will give certainly the kickers out there the opportunity to go out and get practicing and get stuck into something.
Yeah, I've no doubt that being able to sort of essentially be part of a wider group will definitely help. I mean, you think about competition just between 2 people in one team, take, I don't know, an Owen Farrell and a George Ford in England training. I have no doubt that that element of competition at the end of training, I'm going to go and take 100 conversions or whatever, there must be huge competition there. You then add that to a whole community that you're creating, you times that by 100,
I think the one thing we get asked all the time is, who is the best kicker in the world at the moment? We get asked on our Instagram page all the time on the Q&A, and it's a very difficult one to answer, because obviously you've got to take into consideration the weather, the conditions, what it's like underfoot, who's willing to take on the longer shots, who's not, and that sort of thing. But with the Alred Trophy, I know it's an under-18 competition, but we are going to find out who the best kicker is at under 18 level, because they're all going to be kicking from the same place, they're all going to be put in the same environment, and come the end of it, that, like we said, there can only be one winner. So it's a great opportunity to work out who is the best out there.
Well, now you've put the question in my head, though. That's the trouble. I need to know now. But I'll give you a get out. Who is the best long range kicker? Who is the best kicker within their own range? And who could be great if they were to do it a bit more?
I think that was directed at you, Dave.
I think probably the one of the longest long range kickers was probably Steyn from South Africa, who used to take the long ones, from his own 10-meter line. He certainly gave it a hoof. I'm not sure. I think that, quite honestly, there's a whole clutch of kickers that are all very, very competent inside 30 meters. Which one would I back? I'd back any of them. Sometimes certain windy conditions favor certain types of kickers. Whether it's, you notice people who got a very, very heavy plant foot, if it's wet, they tend to get a little bit, it's not a comfortable kick for them. And there is because of the way they come in, they kind of just slip in towards the kick. And there is a tendency of just ever so slightly pulling it for the right footed to the left. I kind of don't answer it on purpose, because everybody has, like golf, has got good days and bad days. Yeah. Tiger Woods misses the cut, but he's still one of the best golfers in the world. And there's going to be occasions when, one of the frontline world-class kickers has not a great day for whatever reason, but it's actually how they come back that's the most important thing. As far as I'm concerned, opportunity to grow. Yeah. And I'd rather be consistent with. No. That's a real good fudge, wasn't it?
It was a very good fudge. It was very good. Steyn was an excellent answer.
Yeah.
So this year you're introducing a girls' competition. Will that run alongside the boys? Is it going to be a similar style?
Yeah. One of the just going back ever so slightly. One of the big things for us at School of Kicking is to sort of develop girls' kicking game as well. We've got Emily Scarrett involved at the moment, and Katie Daly McLean, who are involved with our coaching as well. We're trying to sort of promote more girls getting out there and getting involved with kicking too. So there is a girls' event this year. For the boys, what's happened this year, because there are more numbers with regards to the boys at the moment. We've got regional events which will take place all over Great Britain and Ireland, and those 7 regional events, the best 3 kickers from those events will then go forward to the final, which will be in July, and then the girls' event will be a one-off event which will run alongside the boys' event in July up in Nottingham. So yeah, we're really keen to get as many girls involved as we possibly can, and hence why within our coaching structure, the School of Kicking and the people who get involved to help us with the coaching, it's a 50-50 split at the moment between male coaches and female coaches.
That's fantastic. I mean, yeah, and the women that you have on board as coaches are pretty outstanding in their field. So it's going to be really cool, really inspirational for the girls that come along. I think just to
hopefully I think
be guided through.
Yeah, we run workshops, we run one-on-ones, we run kicking workshops as well, and we had great uptake over Christmas. It certainly helps when you've got Katie and Emily Scarrett there, certainly, but also their input, and hopefully they'll inspire the next generation of girls to come through, and hopefully encourage more girls to sort of get out there. You speak about it with boys when you turn up to a training session. The boys get there, they're all kicking the ball around. Whereas with the girls, it doesn't tend to be the case. The girls will tend to turn up and they'll pass the ball around and jog around passing, but very, it's not very often you see them all kicking the ball around. So hopefully we'll sort of, shackles are off. And all our workshops for the girls are girls only. We found that the girls find it a lot more comfortable being with their own peers, which works really well. And like I say, with the likes of Katie and Emily on board helping as well, we can hopefully inspire the next batch of girls to come through and get more girls out there kicking the ball around and enjoying it.
Yeah. Well, here's to props on the girls' game as well, starting every training session with 45 drop goals.
Exactly.
It's everyone does it. It's fine.